Welcome to Zoo Nation, where we talk about history as it unfolds and talk about the political zoo of a nation that we're living in. My name is Josh.
I'm Nathan.
And we're here to talk to you in this episode about big news. A week ago, exactly from when we're recording this, the presidential debate for the Republicans for 2024. The first debate took place on August the 23rd, and it took place in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And there you had Governor Hutchinson, you had Governor Chris Christie, Governor Doug Burgum, Senator Tim Scott, former governor, our former governor, Nikki Haley.
Oh, yeah.
I repressed that memory.
Yeah.
And then we also had, of course, current governor Ron DeSantis. This is his second term now. And then former Vice President Mike Pence. There's a lot of former and a lot of current. There's a lot of things to keep up with there.
Yep.
And so that's who we have.
Oh, Vivek.
And Vivek Ramaswamy, a businessman who has not served in office of any kind.
Yeah.
So those were the candidates that were there. And this episode is going to be about our thoughts, what we thought of the debate. I think that you and I, did you watch On Rumble?
Yeah.
Okay, me too. I did flip over to Fox at one point because I think one thing that was going through a lot of people's minds is there's some quality issues with Rumble. I don't know about with you, but Rumble kept buffering for me. It would freeze and pause. And a friend of mine that I'm not going to mention on camera had also the same issue.
Yeah.
And he thought at the time, maybe it's my internet connection. And see, here I am thinking maybe it's my internet connection.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it was Rumble, having some
you.
pausing, some freezing. I think it wasn't the fact that Rumble was just bad. I think it was the sheer volume of the hundreds of thousands of people watching.
With it being a smaller platform / growing. When I say small, I mean smaller than YouTube as of right now. It probably wasn't able to handle everything coming in at that time or whatever. So just kind of getting used to the servers and the servers getting used to everything.
So the Rumble stream as of today, which is a week later, take that for what you will, is at a million views. And the Fox News, whenever I did a quick search for the Fox News where they stand, was at the night of the debate 12.8 million and going up from there. So not bad, could have been worse. The voting population is significantly higher than 12.8 million.
Yeah.
But it's not anything to necessarily be ashamed of. I mean, 1 million on Rumble, that's low for the voting population. It's not really low for Rumble because, like you just said, Rumble is a pretty new, recent platform. It is surprising to me on the one hand that the RNC themselves, the moderators of the debate, all of that, decided publicly to say we're with Rumble tonight. Because I didn't think, well, Rumble's at that point, really?
Yeah.
You can understand someone saying, oh, we're streaming this on other social media, but that's kind of in a way.
I think that's good, though.
Exactly. I was going to say.
RNC, I think I've got a lot of issues with the RNC.
Of course.
But, no, I think that's a good move on the RNC, at least saying, hey, screw you, YouTube. Type thing.
Well, at least not actively promoting, like you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah, not necessarily saying screw you, YouTube, but at least saying, hey, we're helping out this other right wing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
helping a platform with at least more free speech, and that was good. I hope that Rumble has more success with their servers and growing and maintaining and not pausing and buffering when people are trying to watch it.
Yeah.
I don't fault them for that. It's just that it would have been nice to not have pausing and freezing.
Yep.
So, regarding that, there's a number of topics that were covered. They began pretty much with the economy / Bidenomics, which is what they're calling it now. Went into some discussion on abortion, crime wave, Trump, and then in that same discussion about Trump, January 6th, and then specifically about Vice President Pence and did he do the right thing? They went candidate by candidate for almost everybody. Did he do the right thing? They talked about the war in Ukraine, which I figured they would. Then Governor Haley had made a comment about keeping trans men or trans women, which are biological men. I get the terms mixed up.
Yep.
Out of women's sports. And so people started addressing, do you think that's right? What do you think about these comments, etc.? Another thing that I actually didn't write down in the prep right after Bidenomics was climate change. I don't know if you remember. A Young American Foundation young man asked that question, what do you think about climate change? I kind of grouped that with the economy because on the one hand, unfortunately, they're becoming increasingly connected. I don't think they should be, but they are. But regardless,
money's going into it.
So. Right, exactly. So that was gone into there. And in the discussion about the economy, there was some talk about fiscal responsibility. There was a decent amount of people saying fiscal responsibility, cutting taxes, cutting regulation, things like that. trans women in sports, immigration and drugs, and then a lightning round that included a host of topics, including Chris Christie being asked about the existence of UFOs, and then closing statements. So if you notice, this is one thing that I noticed, is there was no opening statements.
Yeah.
It began straight with questions, the economy, and then they had closing statements, which on the one hand, take it for what you will.
They all sucked.
Well, the thing about opening statements, you need speech giving. You need canned speeches. But on the other hand, we know that you're here. We know, most of us know who you are. Start answering questions. I kind of like
Except
to
for
know.
Vivek, for the most part.
Yeah, the thing I noticed is he gave an opening statement.
Also, I didn't know who the one guy was. Who was the other?
Burgum or Hutchinson?
Burgum. Yeah,
Burgum.
I didn't know who Burgum was. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't even know who he was. He didn't give bad answers like to everything or whatever. But yeah, I didn't know who he was. So
I was worse. I mixed up him. I thought Hutchinson was the governor of North Dakota.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then I realized no, he opened his mouth and I was like, that's a Southern accent.
Yeah,
That's Arkansas. And he said, governor of Arkansas. And then Burgum opened his mouth and they identified him as the governor of North Dakota. These people, there's so many candidates that are very, very fringe, like hardly any following.
Yeah.
And it's just hard to keep in track. Okay, you announced a run. Wait, earlier, 3 weeks ago, you announced a run. I somehow got them mixed up.
Yeah.
Didn't mix up anyone else. Those were the people I did mix up. And then I realized, okay, Asa Hutchinson did not govern North Dakota. He governed Arkansas. So, so anyway, it was, and then Vivek pretty early on was asked about himself, and he took it as an opportunity to give pretty much a pitch, an opening statement, which I don't blame him. I mean, there's a lot of people that were kind of like, who are you? And it wasn't a bad opening statement. It was just that, for a debate with no opening statements, he kind of did one anyway. That's the only note I would
Here's
make.
the question. What do you think about that little statement he made?
It was okay.
Okay.
I don't really...
Because he's getting flack for it.
Really?
Because apparently, plagiarism-ish, I guess.
Oh, I see.
Because, Chris Christie, I guess called him out. I'm not going to say it's plagiarism or whatever. I mean, yes, it was very similar to what Obama said when he first introduced himself or whatever. At the DNC and everything like that. Just talking about a skinny guy here who knows nothing about politics, et cetera, et cetera. It's very similar to what Obama said originally, and Chris Christie, caught on to that too. However, Vivek's comment back about, hey, well, why don't you come over here and give me a hug, because that's, you hugged Obama for all that stuff, and if you hug me like you hugged Obama, you'll get me elected. So I mean, it was a pretty funny comeback or whatever. I found that pretty humorous. But I don't, he's getting flack for it. So I was just wondering what you thought of it.
On the one hand, it is almost word for word. I didn't realize that, and like Chris Christie made the comparison, and I thought, okay. And then I actually heard a video recording of Obama saying the same thing, and I thought, okay, that's interesting. Vivek, to me, is a very mixed bag. Perhaps we can go into that in a little bit, because I want to hear your thoughts on Vivek as well. I think a good way to begin, before we go candidate by candidate, or perhaps we can go topic by topic, who do you think did well, and who do you think did not do well?
As far as won and lost?
Sure.
All right, so I'll give you my top three. Top three, honestly, I'd probably say Vivek won.
Okay.
If I'd have to. He's a good talker.
Sure.
At least. I think Vivek won. I think DeSantis, he did really well, especially on the border answers. I think that kind of probably bumped him up there, and he gave some good. He also did some good avoidance with the Pence question. That was just that gained him some points as far as not answering it, but also answering it to an extent, I guess. And then I guess third, Tim Scott didn't do too bad. I didn't like his closing statement. As far the reason I say Tim Scott didn't do too bad is because the other guys just I don't like any of the other guys really. Pence gave the typical answers that he usually does. Nikki Haley, can't stand her for half of her answers.
Like I said, I repressed that memory.
Yeah, exactly. So
who was governor?
Yeah.
It's not to say I like McMaster.
Also, what's his name? Burgum, right? Burgum was probably. He gave some decent answers. I'd probably put him third, close to Tim Scott. Him and Tim Scott probably tied for third, in my opinion. Again, probably I'm not gonna vote for either one of those guys. But again, as far as that debate goes, those guys did pretty well. Chris Christie, no. And yeah, just everybody else just kind of, again, same old bland, stuff. Asa Hutchinson, get out of there. We don't need another Bush thing, so.
Did you feel that too?
Oh, yeah, it's like he brought up Bush and stuff like that. It's like, we're not looking for that. Nobody's
not
looking
only
for that.
but like the Southern governor thing,
Yeah.
I was like, this guy really was making me think of, what was funny was in the mannerisms, sort of the son.
Yeah.
But in other ways, like the policy positions, maybe the dad. Like
Yeah.
it really felt like this was 41 and 43 coming together
Yeah.
in a human being with a Southern accent like the son.
And it was like, this is not what Democrats want. And this is definitely not what Republicans
Right.
want. nobody's voting for this.
Right,
Like,
right.
Independents are not, Republicans are not, and Democrats definitely aren't. So just leave.
Cut taxes and pro-war. That was actually like
Yeah.
the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm cool with cut taxes part, pro-war,
Sure.
not so much.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
so that would be my top 3. What do you think?
Right. You have a different take than I do. I would say, even though I don't like him, I would say actually I think Pence had a decent night. I think Pence did well in the sense that he did well and that he's a good debater.
Right.
He was good at taking control. You notice the moderators were like, we appreciate your aggressive. They had to come in and say, hold on, Vice President, you keep talking.
Yeah.
And I think he was being aggressive. I will say this before I go further into who I think other people I think did well. I think that Fox moderation wise could have been better and could have been worse. They sometimes, a couple of times, I thought, okay, y'all are trying to nail people down with some answers.
Yeah.
But other times they ask questions like on climate change, and I'm like, come on, guys, why are we talking about this? This is not an issue that people should care about. With Pence being aggressive, I think that there's people that. I know what I was going to say. I lost my train of thought. I thought that if I had to guess, okay, who's going to get hit one after another? I really thought DeSantis, because he's a pretty consistent number 2 after Trump.
Yeah.
A lot of people were going to take swings at him. Ended up being Ramaswamy.
Yeah, I know.
Vivek really, it was
But
first.
he kind of like put himself in those situations. Like
Sure,
he ran his mouth to,
sort of, yeah,
in a good way.
You're
but,
right. He
yeah.
did. To be fair, he hit everybody, and then only 3 people.
He reminded me of a Trump tactic, to an extent. Not to the extent of Trump.
Right.
He didn't go the insulting route or anything like that. But he was not afraid to go at anybody, and like, hey, if he thought your idea was dumb or whatever, I mean, he went right at it. So to an extent, it reminded me of a Trump
But
debate,
I really
to an
thought
extent.
a lot of people were going to say Governor DeSantis, this, and this. And to be fair, Nikki Haley in her opening statement did bring up debt and did mention Ron negatively. But there wasn't really a whole lot of clashing between Ron and anybody else.
No.
Kind of like you were saying about what you think he did right.
Yeah.
He didn't get into any infantile bickering. He kind of made his statements, and they were well spoken, and especially on the border, very good
was great.
answers.
Yeah.
And I think drugs too kind of goes with the border. Regarding but again, Pence, Christie, and Haley especially really took some shots at Vivek. And Vivek, to me, does not have that bare knuckles, let's go, that Trump has.
Yeah.
Trump would have been like, oh, you know what? Imagine looking at you on the $3, not the $3, but the $20 bill or whatever. He said, I think about Carly Fiorina and being like, who would want to look at that? He didn't have that bare knuckle New Yorker, let's go kind of thing. But he is a debater. He's not necessarily a fighter in the same way that he's a skillful...
He doesn't attack you. He just points out facts.
Sure.
Facts or whatever.
Sure.
As far as he debates you.
Right.
Versus
And
it's like, I'm not going to insult you, but I'll debate you.
And he's a good rhetorician. He's good with his rhetoric.
Yeah.
And a lot of people on the stage were. So who else do I think I did well? I think Vivek did. I think that Pence did. I think, believe it or not, that Haley did, with the caveat that if you were listening for some generic answers that people are going to like, she was basically telling people what they want to hear.
Oh, yeah.
Like, very early on, criticizing the Republicans for spending too much money, it's like, yeah, you're trying to get the fiscal conservative votes.
Yes, 100%.
So I think she did well in that sense, in that she was well spoken. Now, again, it's tickling the people's ears.
Right.
It's not actually like, here's policy about how to get things done. It's tickling the people's ears. Again, we can go into some of the things she said that I did not like, of course. But that's who I think did well. Now, who I think did not do well, it's hard to say because it's so early on.
Chris Christie.
I don't, but with his supporters, I think no. But here's the thing: I don't think he lost any supporters. I don't think he gained. I don't think he gained any either.
But how many supporters of Chris Christie do you actually know?
It's funny. I've listened to the debate a total of 3 times now, and the amount of applause that he got was a little surprising. Now he also was one of the few people that really got booed. So there are people that don't like him. But there are people that do, and I just look at them like, I just can't imagine being a Chris Christie supporter. Yeah. It's just like, why? I can't imagine, walking up to someone and saying, who do you want to be the leader of our country? And they're like, Chris Christie. I just don't see the appeal. I don't see the leadership. I don't see the vision. I don't see the brain power or fighting for conservative values. I just don't see it. I don't understand it at all.
No.
The only thing, maybe if you're a New Jersey person that liked him as governor, but that's such a small state and a very niche thing, So anyway, that I don't think he did well, but really any of them could have done way worse. Again, I think a lot of it was just canned political answers. Yeah. And if you like that with Haley, then you like it. If you like it with Pence saying, I put the Constitution first, then you're going to like Pence. In other words, I don't think it changed many people's minds other than it probably got a lot of people Googling Vivek. I think probably some people were like, who is this guy? Let me look him up. Probably. And I don't know, regarding all polling data, as we've said, it's so early. It really doesn't matter until the actual voting starts.
Yeah.
But it's still interesting to see. We talk about the merits of polls of the Republican Party, but also the Democrat Party, because we're both curious about how RFK will do and stuff like that.
Don't the polls say that most people think that DeSantis was the best performance?
I haven't seen that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
I think that's what Newsmax said. Is that most people at least on their poll, that I'm pretty sure they said that DeSantis did well.
Interestingly, I saw something from Newsmax saying that Vivek has gone down,
really?
Which I don't know what the purpose or reason was for that. I don't know if people thought that he just didn't look good because he got attacked, and maybe they believe what the attackers are saying. I don't really know. And that's one thing too, and we can go into that as we go topic by topic. But I think a good thing to do would be to go into just topic by topic and talk about the candidates' answer. What did you think about what they said on the economy? Really much of anything?
I mean, everybody gave the pretty much relatively the same answer for the most part, the Republican answer, I guess, of like, Bidenomics suck. Mm-hmm. Like our country's in shambles for the most part economically. Yeah, okay. Now what?
Yeah.
Nobody really.
What else is new?
Yeah, it's like, okay, tell me something that like anybody, with eyes doesn't know. Like.
Back to Burgum, the only person that I thought had a somewhat interesting answer, and maybe it kind of bled into the climate change discussion, was he said anytime you buy a windmill or a little battery, it's made in China, which hardly anyone points out. The other thing he talked about, I think a little bit later, is just the worldwide economy of how we can do things to make diesel fuel cheaper in America. That was like, okay, you are bringing forth a vision that is different than anyone else is talking about. Now, maybe they would do the same thing, but they're not talking about it.
Kind of bleeding over into that is Vivek. He kind of talked about nuclear power and everything else.
He mentioned it, yes.
So which does bleed over into economics and everything. So I liked his answers as far as some of that went. As far as that goes, because nuclear is something we should at least look into.
Definitely.
Screw wind power. Because what do you do when wind's not, good? And again, we want to talk about like oil is bad. Okay, well, it takes 100 gallons of oil to run one windmill just for a year. Like that, because what keeps those windmills running? It's not just the windmill.
No.
Like it takes things to lubricate. So.
Magical fairy dust.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. Like a normal windmill that you see in like Ohio and stuff like that, it takes oil to just keep those at least lubricated. So it's like you still need oil. Again, I'm not opposed to like figuring out solar and stuff like that, but what are you doing when it's nighttime? What do you do? Again, you still need these things, like, again, natural resources and everything else, and before you can make a total switch where the that's where I believe the Democrats definitely get things wrong. It's like, oh, we need to totally switch now. It's like you can't do that. It's just not feasible. Mm-hmm. And just our technology hasn't developed enough for that, and yeah, so, but yeah, no, I liked his answer. That kind of bled into economics with that as far as the nuclear stuff, and nobody really else kind of stood out to me as far as economics went. Again, like I said, they kind of all just gave the basic answers to it, in my opinion. I mean, I guess, Nikki Haley, she gave decent.
Well, yeah, and what was more interesting is then it started becoming a discussion about fiscal responsibility.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit more of an interesting discussion because that does matter.
Right.
Debt does matter. Because as I mentioned very quickly, she brought up three people. She brought up Scott, Pence, DeSantis about approving debt.
Yep.
Raising the debt ceiling.
Yep.
And then she brought up Trump spending, I think it was around $8 trillion.
Yeah.
3 before COVID, 5 during, apparently.
Yep.
And so it's like, okay, look,
The man definitely spent a lot of money.
well, it's like, okay, it was a surreal moment for me. It was like, wow, Nikki Haley said something that I've been saying and you've been saying and we've been thinking about.
Exactly.
So, but again, it's like, okay, this is a political thing for her to get fiscal responsible votes. But at the same time, if you're putting that out there, good. I think this should be the party where we talk about, look, printing trillions of dollars is a horrible thing.
Yeah.
And even though you're a bad vessel for it, Nikki Haley, at least people can discuss it somewhat. Let's make big spending like this more unpopular than it is.
Yeah.
And again, would she hold conservatives or Republicans accountable if they spent too much? No. I think she'd go right along with it.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. But anyway,
I think
was
she's given some decent answers, but she's not the person that's going to do what she says,
right,
in my opinion.
Perfectly said.
So yeah,
that's, and then
she goes with what way the wind's blowing.
Sure.
You can look back on that with the record with South Carolina.
Sure.
So
and
yeah,
the other thing was, I think she did, and Scott both talked about, do we want a better environment? Yes, we do, but we want jobs too. Which I think is a reasonable position. It's like we can't, in Trump's position, we can't wreck the economy.
And Vivek said the same thing.
Right. We can't wreck the economy to lower the temperature a fraction of a degree.
Right, exactly.
We have to, and in fact, I want to say it was Scott that said, look, guys, we're 300 million. India's $1 billion. China's over $1 billion. Africa's 950 million. We can't compete if we're going to wreck our economy.
Exactly.
We are outnumbered.
Exactly.
We have to bring jobs here. I think Scott said this. Bring jobs here, then we can compete. Then we can have a discussion about, okay, how do we
make this cost effective?
Right. Exactly. And see, that to me is like, okay, again, 100%. That's not a bad answer.
And
it's just that it doesn't really like stand out from really anything.
And my thing is like also, why are we holding like America and like NATO and stuff accountable for this stuff, but China, India, and like Russia. Oh, what? They're doing stuff that's not good for the environment too?
Someone else brought that up. I forget if it was Scott or Haley, but I think one of them may have said
it was either Scott or Haley.
Their carbon footprint is really high.
And it is. I mean, they're not wrong. And it's like, but we're just... Really? So it's only America and like NATO and stuff like that?
The messed up thing about that is that China is still called a developing nation, so they don't have the same standard as far as the environment goes.
Which is stupid.
But it's like this economy in this country is huge. They need to be held accountable.
Yeah. That's not developing. I'm sorry, they've developed.
Right. If we are going to have this discussion about the environment, we need to have apples to apples.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't say America's a developed nation and China's not. Either none of it goes or it all goes.
What's developing is Africa.
Right. Truly.
If you said Africa's developing, so we're not going to hold... Okay, that makes sense.
Right. And
but
look, there's a serious poverty problem in China and India. Don't get me wrong. But they've massively grown, and David D. Friedman, the economist, has done amazing work on the amazing growth because they both started embracing more capitalism and really changing. So I don't think they should any longer be called a developing nation because, again, it needs to be apples to apples. And again, that's one thing that the green freaks don't say is China and India and a lot of these countries that are so-called developing countries are not actually trying to help the environment, but they're going to obsess, these same people in America are going to obsess over America's carbon footprint when it's so much smaller. We're less people, number one, and number two, we put out way less waste. So I know it's bad, and we need to take more of a role in taking care of the environment. I think everyone should. We should recycle, reuse, etc. But it shouldn't be, again, in a way that wrecks our economy.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. That one thing I think you and I may have said in our last episode, I really thought abortion was going to come up much later. It was like the third topic.
Yeah.
Basically, Pence gave an answer about the Trump years for the economy, and he
Pence
briefly
gave the best answer.
Right, but before then, with the economy, Pence brought up the Trump-Pence years and how we appointed Supreme Court justices that brought back, that gave America a new beginning for life.
Right.
And then that kind of led into this discussion about abortion.
Yep.
And I think Pence and Scott did give the best answers.
Yeah.
I thought DeSantis had a good answer. I thought
DeSantis had a good answer. I mean, political-ish, like, didn't really answer the question as far as, like, signing, stuff. But, again, I mean, I think his record kind of speaks for things.
That's what I would say.
So that's my thing. Is like, he didn't really have to, because, I mean, look what he did in Florida. So assuming that he's going to do kind of the same thing in Florida, I mean, hey.
Sure.
I hated Nikki Haley's response.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
To quickly interject, I thought about two of the things she said, all right, and then the other two, I was like, that's where you completely lose me. I can go into that in a second. Go ahead.
So my problem is when she said we don't need to demonize, I think she said this topic. I think that's what, this topic. And so here's the thing. Do we need to demonize women that get abortions? No.
Yeah.
Right. No. So women that get abortions, no. We don't need to demonize women. But I'm sorry. Abortion within itself is a demon thing.
Of course.
It's like, I'm telling you that they're...
Child sacrifice.
Yeah. Like, and you don't believe me, just watch a movie called Nefarious by Steve Dace. It's a very good movie. And that's one of the topics that they kind of cover to an extent. But no, I mean, there are definitely demons in hell, and that are celebrating every time a child's aborted. I'm sorry, but that's a abortion within itself is a demonic thing. Again, now on the other side of that coin, right? I do not believe in a woman that gets an abortion. We do not demonize that woman. We do not say, oh, you're a terrible human being, blah blah blah. Again, a lot of these women, they end up getting pressured into it. They end up regretting it the rest of their lives, et cetera, et cetera. And then there are those women that just don't want the child at all and don't care. But again, a lot of women they straight up regret it afterwards and everything. So do we need to demonize the women? 100% not. But demonize the topic. 100%. I will never say abortion in any case or scenario. And for people that say, well, what about rape and incest? It's less than 1%. I'm not even going to debate. We're going to leave it alone.
Well, and you and I have in a former episode. So
exactly. We've talked about that in former episodes anyway. So, and again, because most of the cases are, I don't have the money. I don't want the child. It's an inconvenience. It has a disability, et cetera, et cetera. The child's going to have a bad life, whatever. So, that's not your decision at that point. At that point, it should have been, well, if you didn't want the kid, you don't have the money, you shouldn't have done the deed. So it's like, there's your preventatives there. I did not like when she said we don't need to demonize this topic. I totally disagree. The topic itself, yes, needs to be demonized. The people that end up, getting abortions and everything, no, I don't believe in, treating them as, lesser human beings, because again, we're all sinners. We all fall short. We all do things like that, but I mean, however, I do believe in, sharing the gospel with these people and everything like that. But again, that's why the reason I say, that not to demonize the people is just because of the fact of, again, we are all capable of committing any sin that anybody commits. The difference between you and I is we're covered under, the blood and everything, and we actually believe in Jesus and everything. So some of this is just, it's a lack of belief in God issue. So that was my big thing with the abortion debate.
Well, let's go into. She said other things too. Like, for example, she said that. Then she goes, unelected bureaucrats or justices, I think she mentioned unelected justices, made a decision that is very personal to every woman.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, brother. But then she goes, and man. And I was like, all right. Because that's how some people say it. People on the left will phrase it as, oh, this is a personal decision. It's up to the woman. And she said that, but then she actually did say that, period. Then she said, but this should not have been made by the justices. It should be made by every woman and man. I thought, okay, at least now because unfortunately the left will also say no uterus, no opinion. And she was in a way like dog whistling to those people, but trying to have it both ways and say it's also personal to the man as well.
Right.
But then it's like, so then she goes on. So she says that. And it's like, okay, I see what you did there. You're trying to get the women to cheer And then you're also trying to get the conservatives to rally around you.
Yeah, we're involved.
Right. And then she goes on to say a number of can we all agree? A couple of them I was like, all right, fine.
Yeah.
Then she says, can we all agree that contraceptives should be more readily available? No, we cannot agree on that. That's basically free birth control.
Yeah.
No, we cannot agree on that. Then she goes on and
Not
says,
free birth control. Just don't do it.
Right. Well, that's what you and I would say. But again, some people actually think that across the country, birth control should just be free in the sense that our tax dollars pay for it, right? Then the other thing...
And see, that's exactly why it shouldn't be free.
Right.
Because our tax dollars pay for it.
Well, yeah, some of it's...
that's one of the reasons.
Right. Some of it's the principle and some of it's that.
Yeah.
But then the other thing she said is, can we all agree that women that get abortions should not be prosecuted? And it's like, I don't know how you feel about this, but I disagree with that.
Right.
I think that if you go to an abortion clinic, number one, the abortionist should be charged with a crime.
Right.
Number two, the woman should be too.
Right.
I mean, if I hire a hitman to kill you, the law doesn't come to the hitman.
I understand that.
Come to the hitman and prosecute him. They would prosecute him and me and say, Josh, you hired a hitman. What the heck? Nathan's dead. You paid this dude to kill him.
Yeah, no, I get
They
that.
wouldn't just say, oh, the hitman, you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And you paying him money is irrelevant. No, we would prosecute both.
Yeah.
So in the sense of, do we demonize women that do this abortion, in the sense of shaming them, in the sense of like in an unkind or cruel way?
Yeah.
No. But so that's one side. Again, not emphasis on we don't want to do it in a cruel way. Do we want to do it in the way where it's like, look, you committed the crime, you're gonna have to do the time? Yeah. Like I don't think that it's helpful, for example, to be unduly unkind to criminals in general.
Yeah.
But should they go to jail? Should they face legal problems? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to your point, should we as Christians then go to them and say, there's another way. There is Jesus Christ. There is a path. Yeah, we should. But again, you can't escape the consequences of your actions. You should go to jail. You should be legally prosecuted.
Right.
So that's what I would say about that. And so, again, it felt like she was dog whistling and trying to go on all ways on this issue.
Yeah.
And again, it's typical Rhino Republican speak. you
Right.
know.
And then to your point on her talking about the, unappointed bureaucrats
Right.
made this decision. It's like, no, wait a minute. Do you like the Constitution? No, because that's exactly how the Constitution is supposed to
Sure.
work. That's how
Well,
our country works in general.
To be clear, I think she was criticizing it from the perspective of Roe v. Wade.
Right.
Like, not the overturning, but the actual Roe v. Wade.
Well,
and Roe
this is
v.
true.
Wade never should have been. I think
Well, yeah.
that's what she was saying. She didn't clarify,
Right.
but I think that's what she was saying.
But
And
then when you
because
double
then
back
she,
and say this should go to the men and women who choose, this should go to primarily women, but she
Right.
added men in there. But,
Right.
this should go to the men and women to choose, it or not. It's like, I question if she's talking about Roe v. Wade or if she's talking about the overturning or just both. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, she's not wrong that Roe v. Wade should have never been a thing in general. I don't disagree with that.
Sure.
But, again, the unappointed bureaucrats also, made the decision to overturn it too. So it's like, I don't know. Yeah, and again, they didn't make a wrong decision in the sense of, again, it just goes back to the states,
Right.
which is where it was supposed to be.
So one thing I will point out, unless you want to keep on the abortion topic, because we have things to get to, Ramaswamy was not asked about abortion, and neither was Chris Christie. Now, they probably have their stance somewhere, but they were not asked, and I wondered if Christie's kind of in the middle. Maybe that's why he wasn't asked. I just wonder. Now, when it comes to crime, there's not a whole lot to go into. They basically all said, we are for law and order, we're for supporting cops.
Yeah.
One thing, and I don't want to dwell on this too long because, again, we have things to get to, that I will point out, and this is actually something where I think Fox deserves partial, if not total credit, is it was actually a bit of a relief that they phrased the crime questions the way they did.
Right.
Not one question about George Floyd. Not one question about black people being criminalized and victimized. Not one question about people that fear for their lives going home. It was facts-based.
Yeah.
Crime wave across this country. What will you do? And I thought, okay, look, say what you will about Fox. They could have tried to outleft the left on this question. They didn't. So that at least was a bit of a relief because, it's easy to attack things that you see, but it's hard to praise things that you don't see. And that's
100%.
something that we did not get. We did not get questions about race relations in the entire debate. But if it ever would have come up in the debate, it would have been in the crime wave.
Yeah.
And they didn't. They just moved on. They said, all right, what would you do and then they moved on to the next thing, which, again, I think they at least deserve some credit on that, because I guarantee you now, I will say Fox Business is moderating the next one in September, so I don't know if that's going to come up there, but you watch the leftist news stations, there's going to be something about racism, and do you denounce this, and on it'll go. It'll just be horrible.
Yep.
But it's at least a bit of a relief that, again, as bad as Fox is, they didn't ask that. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah.
The other thing, unless you have something to say about their position on crime, was Trump. Brett Baer famously said, we're going to talk about the elephant not in the room, which, if you want to talk about repeating stuff, was something that Megyn Kelly said in 2016, which he repeated.
Everybody repeats
I didn't
something.
view that, I didn't view that as an attack. I kind of viewed it as him trying to be funny.
He was definitely trying to be funny.
Yeah, I didn't view it as, I wasn't offended at all. I thought, okay, you're trying to be funny. Look, it's I've heard it before, but you were trying to be funny, and I get it. I didn't get mad about that, but some people did. They're like, "How dare he?" And it's like, okay, we should have enough of a sense of humor to smile.
He wasn't, so
right. We
like...
should have enough of a sense of humor to smile. That's okay. So he says that. Then basically was asked. The candidates were asked if Trump. So number one, if Trump becomes the nominee, and then secondly, and if he is convicted in a court of law, will you still support him? Because everyone on the stage had said, we will support the eventual Republican nominee.
Yeah.
Trump notably was not in the debate, and he did not, but everyone else has said we will support him.
Yeah.
So the question was, number one, if he is convicted, and number two, will you still support him as if he gets nominated?
Yeah.
And the people that raised their hands, Ramaswamy was first, then Haley, Scott, Burgum, and DeSantis, and then Pence was last to raise his hand. And Christie and Hutchinson notably did not raise their hands. So wanted to ask just your thoughts about this in general. I mean, let's go to the candidates first, and then I have another where I want to go. But what did you think about that? Were you surprised about anyone? Were you surprised that Pence...
Christie doesn't like... I almost said like Obama. Doesn't like Trump.
He does like Obama.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Except for people that have a funny last name like him. You
right,
know?
Exactly.
That are running circles around him in debate.
Asa Hutchinson, don't even know why he's on the debate stage in the first place. Like, again, your topics, dude. Like, we already know you don't like Trump. And the topics you're covering anywhere are so out of date as far as, like, what people, like, majorly care about right now. Yeah, no. So not really surprised that he didn't raise his hand. Again, Chris Christie, not surprised. I guess I was a little bit surprised by Pence, but at the same time, not necessarily surprised, because I think that Pence still likes Trump. He just has the disagreement on what should have been done if he had the right to do or not do, the stuff with the election or not, So I think, again, I was a little surprised, but at the same point, not necessarily surprised, just because, again, I do think that he agrees with Trump on a lot of things, just not the election, So I'm not as surprised. But everybody else that raised their hand, Tim Scott, yeah, makes sense. Nikki Haley, yeah, for the most part, makes sense.
Sure.
Ron DeSantis, you got to raise your hand.
These people are Republican enough where they wouldn't want to put the party at a disadvantage,
right,
and they
exactly.
would go along with
exactly.
it.
And like Ron DeSantis, you kind of have to. You're like second right now probably to Trump as far as like where these guys that are kind of hopping off the MAGA train or just like or people that are just kind of looking in general at Trump or whatever. You kind of have to raise your hand and beat around the bush on those things, and like not answer or completely answer whatever, because those are the things that you definitely have to raise your hand on, because it's like, oh, he didn't support Trump on that, all right, we're out, so it's like for DeSantis, you definitely gotta raise your hand there anyway. So it didn't shock me there. Ramaswamy, that guy's a huge Trump advocate in general. He's been even before the debates and everything. So yeah, he's it's no shocker that he raised his hand. So yeah.
Yeah, and so that happened, and look, as you said, Christie talked about why not. So did Hutchinson. Not really going to get into all that. If people want to hear it, they can listen to the debate.
Right.
Then moved on to, on January the 6th, 2021, Vice President Pence voted to decertify the election. Real quick before I go into that, though, I had this thought. I was going to ask you personally, if Trump is found guilty and is nominated, does he still get your vote?
If Trump is found guilty?
And still gets nominated?
Yes, but I still want other things to like. I want to know. Are you talking like if he's the nominee?
Right, nominee of the Republican Party.
Oh, yeah. If he's the nominee of the Republican Party, yeah, he's
and gets found guilty, you still would vote for him.
Yeah, because I don't think it's going to be fair.
Sure, me too.
Because trials like that are supposed to be a jury of people that haven't ever heard of the case and everything.
Yeah.
I find it very hard to believe that you're going to find somebody that hasn't seen this.
Right. And
it's so bad when Trump was driving through the hood. In Atlanta was going nuts over it and stuff. So it's like, dude, I don't know.
Yeah, not only that, but there's just so many unfair trials.
Yeah.
And people that just hate Trump. I don't see how he could get feasibly get a fair trial.
Right,
so
exactly.
I see what you're saying.
So I mean, yeah, I'd still vote for him if he is the nominee. Now, as far as if I'm going to vote for him in general, I don't know yet.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
But yeah. And then didn't they also talk about would you pardon Trump?
Well, I was going to go there.
Oh, okay.
So the next thing what they discussed was now on January the 6th, 2021, Vice President Pence did not certify the Electoral College. Do you think he did the right thing? So everyone was asked except Ramaswamy, who was not asked. However, I'll go into what he said in a second. Pence talked about why he did what he did, and people talked about why they thought he did the right thing. DeSantis was he didn't answer right away. He said, number one, he said something that I thought was spot on, which is this is not about January 6th, 2021. It's about January 20th, 2025. And I thought, and he got a lot of applause. People were like, come on, move on.
I think people are tired of hearing J6.
Move on.
They really are.
Move on.
I think Democrats are tired of hearing
it too. Okay, maybe you think that. I don't think so. I think they want to. I think they want to use it.
I mean, not CNN, but I'm talking like just your. Not completely left Democrats, but like you're like in the middle Democrat, not Republican at all, but they're still Democrat, moderate, like your old time Democrats.
I think the Democrats love using it as a baseball bat to hit the Republicans.
So? I'm just tired of hearing it in general. I know myself. But
you and I are. That's not the question. Yeah. The question is, do you think that Democrat voters are tired of it? I don't know. I think there are a few between. I think a lot of them love hearing about it in the sense that they love.
Some people have brought to the light to it. About it, and so they're kind of tired of hearing about it too.
I could be, but I feel like if that's the case, then they're probably not necessarily like a Democrat.
Well,
so maybe that's the distinction to draw. Yeah. So to move on back to it, DeSantis was asked, and first he said that. Then Pence said, "What's your opinion? The American people deserve to know." And then he said, "You did your duty. I have no problem with you." And then kind of said some other things.
Yeah, he did. He answered correctly because. He didn't answer the question, and this is again for DeSantis. It's not a question. Like he politically, in my opinion, he politically answered it, which is like just kind of beat around the bush, not officially like answer, but you give a somewhat of an answer to say, yeah, you did what you thought you were supposed to do. Okay, that's cool, like whatever. But he didn't answer it, and like yes, I believe that I'm 100% behind Pence here.
He didn't answer like Chris Christie did.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, like that's my point. Because if you're DeSantis, again, you are the guy that people, for the most part, are looking at as far as like, man, if I'm not voting for Trump, am I voting for DeSantis? Or, as DeSantis, you can't vote. You can't answer that. Or in my opinion, if you want to gain votes, right, or try and pull votes away from Trump in general, you cannot answer that question officially, especially like Chris Christie. You cannot answer that question and say, yeah, 100%, because again, most of the MAGA supporters 100% disagree with that. So if you say, yeah, I 100% agree with what Pence did, boom, 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 you're losing votes, potential votes. You know what I'm saying? So I believe that Pence answered that question about as well as he could.
DeSantis.
Yeah, my bad. DeSantis answered that question about as well as he could about Pence.
On the one hand, yeah, it would have been good for him to just refuse to answer. To your point, I think it would have been better if he just didn't answer at all.
Right.
So yeah, that would have been preferable. But basically, then to come back finally to what you said, there was a question about would you support him, and Ramaswamy in just a few seconds hopped right in and said, Mike, how about you join me in saying you would pardon President Trump if he's found guilty?
Yeah.
And then Pence gave the political answer of, well, he'll have his day in court.
Yeah.
He deserves to be found innocent, or to be presumed innocent until found guilty.
Which is not wrong, but
that's the political
didn't answer the question.
But again, like, so think about this. It is wrong because, as you and I just said, how is Trump going to get a fair trial?
Yeah, how is he going to
and
get a fair
that's
trial? Exactly.
Vivek's mindset. Vivek's mindset is he's not going to get a fair trial.
Like, he's one of the most popular guys on the planet,
right?
Let alone the U.S.
Right,
you know?
Right. And so it was the wrong answer.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have said that. He should have said, "Oh, well, he's not going to get a fair trial." So absolutely, that's Vivek's mindset.
Right.
So anyway, that's that topic. To come to Ukraine, we can stay here as long or as short as we want to. The only person because this is the way they framed the question, again, to kind of relive the debate. Fox News asked, who here would stop giving aid? Vivek raised his hand. DeSantis kind of did, kind of didn't, because he was waving his hand for attention. Like, let me speak, let me speak. Then went into, and by the way, this is something that he did a couple of times, is he rejected their rules.
Yeah.
So on climate change, he said, look, we're not going to raise our hands on who, like we're school children.
Yeah,
let's get into the debate.
Yeah, he makes them more of a gray area. It's like, hey, I'm addressing the gray parts of it. It's not black and white
the
per
nuance.
se. Yeah, exactly.
The nuance.
So I don't necessarily disagree. It kind of, I will say it worries me-ish. But, however, I did like his answer to an extent. It kind of, not really. I'm okay with his answer. Let's say that. I don't like it precisely, but he talks about...
You mean specifically on Ukraine?
Yeah.
Okay, not climate change.
Yeah, not climate change.
I want to clarify.
Yeah, on Ukraine. Because he talks about we need to make, Europe and NATO, put in their fair share, and then we'll see what we do as far as what NATO does. And it's like, yeah, but I don't want to be involved in this in general. We've already given enough as is, So my point of view is like, no, just forget it. Let's leave everything else alone because we've given... Shoot. Like...
It's getting close to $100 billion.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's a lot of money, So it's like if you want to play the game of like, well, let's see what Europe does. Okay, well, as soon as they catch up to the billions of dollars that we've done, at least, then maybe. But so that's my problem. It's like I don't want to hear about giving money at all to Ukraine anymore.
Which is Vivek's position.
Yeah, exactly. So Vivek, I liked him. Vivek, however you say it, whatever. I liked his answer better, just because again his is like, no, we're like done, America, America first. I liked it. However, Nikki Haley shot back at him on this, but I don't like her for Ukraine though. So, but she shot back about Israel, coming up with Israel, talking about he's anti-Israel, and I agree with her as far, not anti-Israel, but I agree with her as far as what she said is Israel is one of our biggest allies and we support our allies, etc., etc. I agree with that. But to what Vivek said is also a friend also sits here. He said something similar of like a friend sits here and helps you up to stand on your own 2 feet,
right,
etc., etc. And then, in a time of need, you come and help, etc., etc. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I mean, yes, I can be friends with you and not be, constantly giving you money.
Live-in roommate.
Right, exactly. So I'm not. That doesn't mean I'm anti you just because I don't want to be there hand holding your hand all the time. If you can stand on your own 2 feet and you're falling here, somebody comes and punches you in the mouth. All right, like what's up? Do you need to go to the doctor? Like what's up? Like you good? Like yeah, that's I can be there as your ally for that and stuff. But as far as like if you're standing on your own 2 feet and everything's going fine, I mean it'd be a waste of my money to just keep pouring money into you for something when you're standing on your own 2 feet with your own job.
It was disheartening to hear the cheers that she got.
Yeah.
Because on this issue, again, Vivek has the correct position.
Yeah.
And Christie, Pence, and again, this is where they all three hit him. Before, there'd been some jabs, but all three of them took a slug at Vivek on this issue.
Yeah.
First Christie, then Pence, and then I think Haley. And I think he probably got under Haley's skin the most.
Oh, yeah,
because
she
if you
can't
noticed,
stand him.
yeah, she got really mad.
You can just tell, man. And see, that's something I don't like about her is, man, she got, like, angry.
Yeah.
It's like, man, geez. Gracious. You okay? But, yeah, no, he got under her skin, and, I mean, he wasn't really even attacking her. I mean, he was just trying to, again, debate what she was saying. It's like, okay, you said this. It's like, okay, right. So... I don't know what.
Then she brought up. Then she brings up his Israel foreign policy.
Yeah.
And again, the cheers that she got is what's hard. If you noticed, it was so loud that Vivek was trying to talk, and it was almost hard to hear him.
Yeah,
it was really
exactly.
not almost. It was really hard to hear him, and he probably should have just waited and then spoken. But he
100%.
kept talking.
Yeah.
And I guess he was trying to do it to keep momentum on it, but it didn't really work. He probably should have. See, what Trump would have done, this is the thought that I had, is he would kind of wait, smile, and laugh, and then say, those are all her donors. That's what Trump did. See, remember, that's what he did. Bush got applause, and he said, those are all his rich donors clapping, and people that are paid to be here.
Exactly.
And that was how Trump punched back.
Yeah.
Is these people are just special interests. They're not actually voters, true or untrue, whatever it is. So that's what Trump would do as the fighting instinct of bare knuckle. Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm hitting you right back and questioning the legitimacy of these applause.
I think he'll get there though. I think he'll get
we'll
there.
see. This is his first debate, from what I can tell.
Yeah,
so again, this is what I'm saying. It's kind of early to tell. So
he's
anyway,
used to business meetings, not
right. And, you have to fight fellow either employees or board members and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's disagreements. How do you run the company?
Right.
Etc. So he's used to dealing with conflict. It's just this is a completely different one. Number one, it's televised, and these debate answers are super short, super fast. It was just really hard for him to have a punchy response against more aid, because these people are professional politicians that know how to give a quick da-da-da, like, the whole catchphrase. Israel doesn't need America, America needs Israel. These quick phrases that just click. And look, he would try to say these are predetermined phrases, so he had that, but he didn't know how to have his own one coming back. He couldn't do it very well.
Exactly.
So, anyway, go ahead.
Also to your point of like how much applause, Nikki Haley got, anytime that you mention Israel as a positive for the RNC, you're going to get applause in general.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because, for the most part, the RNC does support Israel. I mean, as we should. They are a great ally. They're our best ally. If, out of everybody, they're the best ally I believe we have. But again, so it's that's why she got the applause in general, is because, she mentioned Israel in a positive light, so she's going to get that, type of applause, in my opinion. I don't think anybody really like cared about her stance as far as that went. It's more of just, she said, Israel's good, and et cetera, et cetera. That's right.
I see what you're saying.
And I guess I'm calling voters stupid.
To rephrase, I think you're hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah.
What she did was, don't pay attention to my Ukrainian policy, pay attention to my Israel policy.
Right, exactly.
It was, don't pay attention, because the war in Ukraine, as far as sending aid to it goes, people are getting kind of tired of it. I think especially people in the MAGA movement are like, America first.
Oh, yeah.
We don't need to be involved in this. And even some people in the DeSantis camp, and obviously Ramaswamy's camp. But in the other group, they're for the Ukrainian stance. But again, the Republicans are split on that. So she was trying to say, don't pay attention to this, pay attention to this, and got a bunch of thunderous applause.
Right,
so I see what you're saying. It was a kind of a red herring.
Right.
So I think what you said was how it worked. And I think for some people it worked. They went from talking about Ukraine to Israel, and it was like, well, wait a second, weren't we just talking about Europe? Right. And now we're talking about the Middle East somewhere.
Yeah, right.
So
exactly.
Anyway,
it's like, how did we get on this topic?
So one thing we'll say, we got to keep going though, is regarding Haley did say correctly that boys do not belong playing sports with girls,
100%.
And it was answered very quickly. All she really did was clarify. Maybe one or two people responded. One thing that disappointingly was not brought up was more of this transing of the kids.
I know.
That was very quick. Playing sports is one issue. What are you going to do about people being put on puberty blockers? Children being put on puberty blockers. What are you going to do
Chemical castration?
Right, exactly. The stuff that we literally use on pedophiles to make it where they can't get it up. We'll just be cautious about how we phrase this.
Yeah.
But they can't get it up because of this thing that destroys them down there.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's being given to children, right? What do we do there? What do we do in terms of think about the show? And look, it's happened famously in Scotland, but it's on Netflix shows as well. I think about the show in Scotland of the bull saying, I go by they, them pronouns, even though it has like a male voice.
That's ridiculous.
What are you going to do? So that was on Netflix, though. So even though it was a Scottish show, Americans could watch it. They could have talked about that in so many ways. Children are watching this stuff. Mm-hmm. Children are
going to pride shows. Children are going to drag shows. Children have drag shows in their freaking schools.
Just a couple months ago was Pride Month with all these parades. What is your view on that? What are we going to do for children? And also, this is the important thing. This is kind of pushing the edge of the culture, which is something that the so-called conservative party should do.
Yeah.
These people are following adults that are doing this.
Yeah.
What should we do? Like, this is a cultural issue of our time. And Vivek got into identity, but he didn't go into this part of identity.
Yeah.
Now, he did say in his closing statement, there's only two genders, and that's great. You know, that applies to the entire world.
At least we can agree.
Right. That applies to the entire world. That's not just sports. That's the entire world. There's
Yeah.
only two genders.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the only thing is, they didn't go into the hard. The easy stuff is children shouldn't play sports against children that are not their own sex. That's easy.
Cool.
That's a centrist position. Okay,
Yeah.
It's crazy that's how far the Overton window has gone to the left.
Yep.
The Overton window is that far left, where that's the so-called
That's the
middle.
centrist part.
Right.
Yeah.
It's weird. The centrist point should be no, like men are men and women are women. You know, that should be common sense. The far left should be the stuff that we have, right? But it's not considered far left. And so the question is, the moderators didn't push that, and none of the candidates could have said, you know what, we're talking about this issue, let's expand and go here. If anyone should have done it, it should have been DeSantis, because he has been probably the hardest on that issue from a
He's got the record.
Exactly, from a governing perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Now, will that come up in the future?
Hopefully.
I hope so, and this is an interesting thing. What could happen, it would be very interesting, for example, for someone more in the middle to attack him on that, because then it would expose how you are trans-friendly. DeSantis is for one man, one woman, etc.
Yeah.
That's how it is. And so that would expose who's the rhino and who's the actual social conservative. Will that happen? I hope. We can only hope. It may not necessarily be revealed in the debates. It may be revealed more in the campaigning. But we'll see. You know, I hope it happens. I hope that we go into that more. I don't have a lot of faith in Fox, or definitely none of the leftist ones that are hosting this. If the left does bring this up, it'll be through the lens of, this is a transphobe, do you disavow it? That I could kind of see, but I don't know. I mean, again, I feel like they're going to try to stay safe, and unfortunately, safe is not going to cut it. We need to have strong positions on how are we going to help our children, how are we going to help our young people, how are we going to help our culture just in general. Yeah. And that would be a tremendous opportunity also for the candidate to say, we believe in God, and God set up this institution, and this is how it is. You can get mad about it, but this is how it is.
Agreed.
Because that would show who the Christians are, too.
Yep.
And we need that. I think a lot of Christians are watching to see who we go with on this one. So when you talk about people that are looking at Trump, but also other alternatives, they're wanting to see, where do we go? Who embodies Christian values, right? So there was that one. Immigration and drugs, almost everyone was like, they can't be here illegally. DeSantis notably said, I would not send troops to Ukraine, like U.S. troops to Ukraine. I would send them to our border.
Thoughts on that?
Good stance. Oh, I love it.
So you'd send. So you would go to war with the cartel.
So there's a distinction. I would put them on the border.
Right.
Now the actual question was, would you send troops into Mexico?
I think he said yes.
He did. So that's a tough one. Yeah. I would not want a war. Like, I'm not Dan Crenshaw. I don't think we should invade Mexico. There's got to be something done about the cartels. So the devil's advocate of me is like, well, maybe there should be something done about the cartels, because Mexico can't handle them.
But you can't do something without going into Mexico.
Right. So this is where it's kind of like, you've got a wolf by the ear, and you can't hold him or let him go.
Yeah.
Because it's like, do you go into Mexico, and that's construed as an invasion into their territory if it's found out. Now, if it's secret, no big deal. But if it's found out and declassified, that's where you got problems.
But the problem is the Mexican government is willingly letting this happen, too.
So that's what I was about to say next. The problem is Mexico's a massive problem.
Yeah.
Because either, number one, the government is in bed with the cartels, or number two, they're intimidated by them.
Yeah,
and they'll just do nothing.
Yeah.
Right? They just do nothing. Or possibly there's someone in there that wants to do something, but they're just powerless. They're outvoted, whatever. Mm-hmm. Almost all of them are in the pocket of the cartels or intimidated by them, and just silenced. They can't do anything. So something needs to be done. I think that there's some strong stances that Trump has about the death penalty to drug dealers. That's one possibility. Again, with sending troops into Mexico itself, that's a tough decision. It's like, I don't really know. I don't want an international incident. I don't want a war in Europe. I don't really want a war on our border with the Mexican government either.
I'm less frightened of a war in Mexico.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, as far as, like, Mexico doesn't have the utility to do anything against us versus, in my opinion, unless China starts to back them up or something, which could be a possibility.
They're giving fentanyl to Mexico.
That's my thing. So that's one of the reasons that I'm going to kind of take the opposite stance or more aggressive a stance.
Sure,
I guess.
Sure, I get that.
I'm 100% for. I don't want to call it invasion because we're not going into. I mean, we're going to Mexico, like the country, but we're not going into, attack Mexico. We're going in to attack the cartel.
Sure.
And get rid of the cartel.
I get that.
So yeah, people would call it. Yeah, we need to invade Mexico. No. We need to get rid of the cartel.
Right.
We need to wage war on the cartel. 100%. I'm with that. Now, if the Mexican government says, no, you can't come in, I'm sorry, we're doing it. Because you are sitting here and you're preventing us from stopping. And I'm pretty sure even DeSantis said that he would label him as a terrorist threat to an extent. So it's like, yeah, you are stopping us from trying to stop a terroristic threat to our country. And I'm sorry, but fentanyl is becoming major. I mean, shoot, everything's getting laced with fentanyl now, I'm not an advocate for, weed or anything of the sort or anything like that. But I mean, shoot, guys are dying just by smoking weed because, guess what? It was laced with fentanyl.
Right.
It's like, yeah.
And there's a real tough one there because on the one hand, it's like, definitely, if the fentanyl wasn't there, they wouldn't be. It's more likely they wouldn't die.
Yeah.
However, these people, we should place individual agency on them,
right,
and saying you're choosing to break the law, you shouldn't be choosing to break the law. So it's hard. It's like you have to give individual agency to the person breaking the law. At the same time, you do want to say stop bringing poison into our country.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a both.
Another thing is they're also costing us a ton of money, too.
Oh, yeah.
In the process of doing all this.
Right. And the war on drugs is a tough thing to fix because there's been millions, or if not billions, probably billions, spent on the war on drugs, and it's not really getting better. However, legalization is not the answer. What is? And on the one hand, what I would like to see are to go on offense rather than let's plan on not losing. Well, how are we going to win?
Yeah.
One thing, in my view, that would is executing drug dealers, and another thing would be the military on our border.
Yeah.
Like, that's one thing that Ron Paul actually would advocate for, whatever you think about withdrawing from bases around the world, but he would say, don't just take them home, put them on the border.
Put them somewhere else, yeah.
We have
Give them a job.
so many, we have so many illegal crossings, put them on the border.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's definitely what we should do, and I think it would just radically change everything.
But no, I'm all for supporting DeSantis on that, as far as going in. And again, as long as it's going for the cartel and not like we're going after Mexico or whatever.
Right.
Again,
we're not taking Chihuahua, Mexico. We to the extent that we were going after their bases, like the cartel hideouts.
Right. Exactly.
Chihuahua.
We're going after the cartel. We're not going after anything. Unless we find out that the Mexican government is in bed versus they were just intimidated.
Right. Well, but then the problem,
that might become different.
But then the problem becomes if that has to be the case, as I just said.
Yeah.
Do we then say we're here to bring you democracy and we topple their government?
No, we're just here to say stop.
Well, okay, but you have to be willing to say when it comes to the government specifically. What do we do about the government specifically?
My thing is you go in, you get rid of the cartel and everything that you possibly can, and then you after you've done, for example, you go back to World War II, right? And you look at, now I'm not saying drop a nuke on Mexico, just a heads up.
Dude,
but
we can't get rid of all the tacos in the world.
Exactly.
I want my number 3 now.
Yeah. So but my point is what happened after Nagasaki and Hiroshima? Boy, Japan didn't mess with us after that.
Sure.
My point is, you go in there, you destroy it, you make your presence.
They did have a very deadly weapon. They invented anime.
Oh, well, yeah, this is true.
And all of America is addicted to anime.
Got a point there. Very true. But
this coming from a guy who watches My Hero Academia.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like we both watch anime. But yeah, no. And by the way, talking off topic about anime, totally disagree with Matt Walsh on his opinion of anime. But anyway, that's beside the point. No, my whole thing is go in there, show your force, destroy the cartel, and any known supply and everything else, destroy as much as possible. Then you come back and you lock down the border completely and say, look, you guys try any of this again.
It just
we showed you what happened. Try us again.
There's a lot of unknowns when you cross another country's borders because what happens, for example, if we go in there and Mexico says get out?
No, because you are causing a threat
What if
to our
they
country.
send military troops and say get out?
No, because you are causing a threat
So
to
then
our
we
country.
have war with Mexico.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
I'm okay in
All
this
right.
in this case because I believe it is one of our closest homegrown threats. You know, not homegrown, but one of our closest like
I know
territory
what you
threats.
mean,
You
yeah.
get what I'm saying? It's one of our closest threats to America that needs to be dealt with. It's killing tons of people. Not only that, but again, other major countries, China, are taking advantage of this. So you go in and stop that threat, or at least cut off a pipeline. That's at least dealing with. You're kind of not killing two birds with one stone, but you're at least killing one of their weapons to an extent. You get my
You're
point of view.
killing a Chinese dragon and a Mexican chihuahua at the same time.
Yeah, to an extent. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, Peter would so be ticked.
That's great.
But no, I mean, yeah, I mean, you're at least taking off one of the heads of the Hydra
Yeah,
China.
yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah.
So that's my whole point. And oh well, we don't want to invade and all that type. I'm sorry, but when you are causing
know,
threat,
man.
like I'm sorry, in this case, I'm all for it. If they're causing threat and attacking us, this is an attack in my opinion.
I hear the argument. I do, because there needs to be something definitely done about the cartels. It just gets complicated when you've got the Mexican government saying, all right, get out, and we say no, because then to the world stage, if you want to talk about the world stage, then it looks like America is invading Mexico and refusing to comply with what the government in Mexico is saying, legitimately or illegitimately. It makes us, from an optics standpoint, it just looks really bad.
Okay, so if they say, all right, get out, but you say, all right, we'll get out if you guys are going to stop, your cartel and everything. And they say, no, we're not going to stop it. In fact, we're in bed with them, et cetera, et cetera. What are you going to do then?
I don't know, because, again, it's a no-win. Like,
It's more of a loss for us.
I get that, and again, there needs to be something done about the cartels. I just don't know what you do. I mean, I don't know what you would do. Like, it's difficult because America is not exporting drugs to Mexico, but if we were and they invaded us, we wouldn't want our border crossed. I mean, it's just a tough thing.
I don't want my border crossed in general. But
Right. No, but see, this is the problem. They are sending, as Trump said, their people to come to our country and come in illegally. If we invade their border, right, it's an invasion.
Technically, they invaded us first.
I understand that. But from the world stage, we've got to be careful from an optics standpoint, because it looks really weird for America to be like, how dare Russia invade Ukraine and then invade Mexico?
But Ukraine was not sending drugs over into Russia.
I understand.
You get what I'm saying?
I do.
So, like, it's a different... Like, if Ukraine was like, I don't know. Yeah, let's say the opposite. Ukraine was...
Well, let's say they had biolabs, and Putin said they were going to invade because there are biolabs in Ukraine.
That's not the same thing, because you're not sending
what was said, and it was used as a justification for moving in there.
Right.
We would be using, in this scenario, the justification would be invading Mexico because the cartels are there.
We're
No,
cartel, and we've already been invaded as is.
Okay, but do people, by and large, on the international stage, view illegal immigration into our country as an invasion? No. So I agree that it is an invasion.
But doesn't America have to take care of itself and not care necessarily what the...
Sure. But when it comes to having legitimacy on the world stage, optics are important. Now,
I agree.
Action can be the same as what you're saying. I just think that probably what needs to be done is it needs to be very secret, rather than an explicit, like, we're here, we're going after the cartels. It probably needs to be like SEAL Team 6 stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, the whole how to do it is a different thing. But I'm talking, I definitely would go into Mexico. I'm not necessarily saying, active Congress raging war.
It sounded like you were saying that.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying.
Well,
but
it wouldn't be Congress, because, frankly, Congress does nothing.
No, Congress is going to do that.
Yeah, it would be the president ordering it to happen.
Exactly. So I mean, that's my thing. It's like, so SEAL Team 6, something like that. If we do it quietly, that's cool, too. I'm just saying, something as far as going into Mexico is to get rid of the cartel is my opinion of what needs to be done.
Okay.
I mean, that's the only way that stops things, All
right. We're almost an hour and 10. We need to wrap up. If you do have questions to close, let's go into them. If you don't,
I don't really.
We can...
I got one, but...
Okay.
What was your... here's... did we touch on climate change?
No, but we can.
Yeah, what do you think of their answers?
We went into it quickly. Well, back to it. To me, it was all, generally speaking, we need to have better environment, but we don't need to crash the economy.
Right.
Nothing really stood out there. I mean, again, like you said earlier, he said embrace nuclear. He was the only person that said that.
What about his answer of I'm the only person here that's going to say this about the
That's fair.
Climate change is a hoax.
That was really good.
Agree or disagree?
So it is a hoax in the sense of I don't think human action is contributing to it, at least in the way that people say that it is.
The rain right now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I would say if it does affect it, it's just a tiny little bit and not significant.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's a hoax in the sense that it's not what the media calls it. And I thought it was courageous. I think it was great. And he couched it. By the way, he couched it in a way where it said, "I'm the only one not bought and paid for, so I can say this." And it was funny. Right after he said it, people started saying, "Whoa, whoa, 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 that's not true about me." But none of them could say we don't have super PACs behind us. They all have super PACs behind them.
It's not necessarily something.
It depends on
it
depends on the PAC, right? And Trump didn't really have any PACs in 2016 until the general. Then he got some of the big PAC money. But at the beginning, no, he's self-funded, right? So none of them could say, "What are you talking about? We don't have any of that." So nothing really stood out as far. Now that stood out, and that was good. And again, he used it as a way to attack. But other than that, didn't have really anything else to say about that issue. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, I loved it. I loved his answer as far as the climate change is a hoax. I 100% believe it's a hoax. And going into it biblically is. I believe that, we're supposed to be stewards of the earth and we're supposed to take care of it 100%. Definitely. For example, I think that we're supposed to go out there and, we've got basically an 8th continent out there in the ocean because of a bunch of garbage, trash, and everything else. Yeah. And sure, is that killing wildlife and everything else? 100%. No question about that. Does that need to be cleaned up?
We should deport the Democrats there.
Yeah, right. I don't think it's. I think they sink.
I'm not hearing a downside.
What? I get your point. But
hey, we're talking about in Minecraft in case anyone's worried.
Yeah. So that's my thing is go out there, fix that stuff. When it comes to wildlife and pollution of the forests and stuff like that. 100%. We need to fix that stuff. Yeah. No question. But that's not climate change. That's just don't pollute and don't throw your stuff away. Reduce, reuse, and recycle.
Right.
Like that's the good stuff. But again, to your point, are we sitting here punting holes in the ozone layer and all this other stuff, et cetera, et cetera? No, in my opinion, from a biblical standpoint, I believe that this whole climate change that has changed from global warming, global freezing, global cooling, climate change. Finally got it right, climate change, right? Because climate does change. I believe it's all a cover-up, in my opinion, for the government to kind of cover up Revelation, as far as, hey, these are the things that you're going to see towards the time of God's return, as far as the second coming goes and everything, is you're going to see, fires, earthquakes, et cetera, massive storms, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to see those things. Now, again, Revelation doesn't specify necessarily per se why, except for that God's coming. It's get closer and closer to God's coming. But was it man-made or not? The Bible doesn't necessarily specify. I don't believe they are. God is an almighty God. We are not almighty, man. So almighty God is the only one that can control all these things. So therefore, that's my opinion on that. I 100% believe it's a hoax. And again, I'm all for taking care of the environment. But I want the government out of it. Same thing with charity and stuff like that. It no longer becomes charity if I'm being forced to do it. It takes out the helpfulness. It takes out the community. It takes out everything else of it. So my thing is, I want the government out of it as far as that stuff goes. If we want to sit here and create more teams to go out again, just to use for example, go out into the ocean and clean out the oceans and stuff, I'm all for that. That's great, as long as it's not funded by the government, because again, I should not be forced to, if I want to take care of the forest instead of the oceans, why should I be forced to take care of the ocean right now? Especially what if I can't swim?
Right.
You know, I mean, that's just my point. It's like it no longer becomes purposeful to me
Right.
as a person,
Right.
and it's not doing help to my community. Just like the charity thing. If I'm forced to give to, I don't know, the LGBT, and that's not like my calling or whatever, it's not for multiple reasons, but anyway, that's not my calling to help that community. I'm not doing justice to my community by being forced to put my tax dollars or anything else out there
Sure.
to them, because it's forced. It's more serviceable to your community if you are giving, because that is something based off your calling, based off from the heart, etc. You know, based off you are genuinely wanting to help via your community.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of my take on it. Love this answer. And yeah, I mean, none of them could really say anything against him, in my opinion.
Right.
So yeah, I like this answer.
We need to wind down. Did you have a question to close? Because if not, we can go ahead and end it.
So
quickly.
If Trump wasn't in it, who's the guy? Who's your next pick based off of this one debate?
If Trump was not in it, I don't really know. Because I've got concerns about all of them, and none of them are really that perfect.
Right.
That would be a tough one, man. I'd have to think about it.
Right.
I really don't know. I'm thankful I don't have to make that call.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty clear about who I'm backing in this race.
Yeah.
And you're pretty clear that you're looking around. But to real quick wrap up, you've made comments positively about DeSantis, although he's not a perfect man, because no one's a perfect man.
100%.
Would you still say, of all these people, that you would want to go with him, or would you want to go with Vivek, or who's your number one guy? Would you say?
Right now, it's still DeSantis.
I gotcha.
My number two guy, as far as without Trump in
Sure.
it, my number two guy without Trump in it is Vivek.
Okay.
Just based off what he's talking and everything. Again, you know, yeah. So those are my top two right now.
Great. Well, we're going to wrap up, guys. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Zoo Nation. We really appreciate y'all tuning in. And please do follow us on social media. Look for us on Facebook, Zoo Nation. Instagram is zoo_nation_. Twitter is @ZooNation1776. My name is Josh.
I'm Nathan.
Thank you, everybody, and have a great evening.